So you've probably heard of the term RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, but most people still have no idea how it works or even why it matters. By the end of this video, you'll have a solid grasp of what exactly RAG is, why it's the foundation of some of the most powerful AI agents, and how vector databases make it all possible. And at the end of this video, we'll talk about some real-world use cases that founders, AI builders, and teams are using right now so you can start applying this yourself. So let's start off with what is RAG. So RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. And basically, it's this process of retrieving relevant information from a vector database based on a user query, and then the user prompt is augmented by adding these relevant chunks as context. And then finally, a large language model will generate a response using this augmented prompt, which includes the user input and the relevant chunks that were pulled from the vector database, which you can think of as the query results. So moving forward, why would we use RAG? What are the benefits of this system? So the overarching benefit of RAG is that it acts as an information retrieval system, which both uses current up-to-date information and is more reliable. When using RAG, there's no guesswork being done by the large language model. It's not going to pull fictional information based on untrained data, but there are specific benefits to using RAG. One is the cost effectiveness of it. Most foundational models that you can access via APIs are trained on relatively generalized and unlabeled data. So if you have company-specific data and you want to communicate with it via LLMs, it's much more costly to train a foundational model on that data as opposed to using RAG. RAG makes this technology more accessible and cost-effective, allowing you to inject that data into a large language model via a vector database. Even if the ongoing data sources for foundational models are satisfactory for your needs, it's hard to monitor the relevancy of that data. Whereas RAG allows you to provide the latest research, news, or statistics to generative models. This allows the large language model to provide the latest information to users. And this also feeds into the third benefit here. So enhanced user trust. Because you're giving the most relevant and up-to-date information, there's much more trust in those responses. There's also ways to attribute the sources at which the information is coming from. And finally, there's more developer control. Since you can change and control the large language model's knowledge base, this gives developers much more flexibility to test and improve their chat applications. So at the end of the day, there's no guesswork going on here. RAG helps provide reliable and up-to-date information, and it's not just going to make up an answer based on training data. So I know that was a mouthful, but now let's go high level and look at how RAG actually works. So the RAG process starts with a user query. You can think of this as a question that you're asking a large language model. That user query is then mapped to a vector database, and relevant information or chunks around that vector will be pulled and augmented with the user's original query. That will feed into the large language model as context. So really the way that you can think about it is you have the large language model, you have its system prompt, you have a user prompt that's been augmented with these chunks, and then you also have the foundational knowledge of the large language model. All of that, you just put it together and it's going to give you a response. So we've mentioned vector databases, but what the heck is a vector database? So a vector database indexes and stores vector embeddings for fast retrieval and similarity search. So the way that you can think about a vector database is that it's a multi-dimensional space in which vector embeddings, which have their own coordinates on this space, are stored. So if you look on the left-hand side, you can see that there's different points that are being plotted, and a vector database basically maps data, unstructured data, to a multi-dimensional space. So if you're looking at tech companies, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, they're all going to be close together. If you look at pets, cat, dog, horse, they're all going to be close together on this space. And then food like burger and pizza, they're going to be close together. And then there's these miscellaneous items that come in the middle like fish and chicken. These could be both food or pets. Or Apple, this could be food or a tech company, right? So it's basically taking data and mapping it on a multi-dimensional space. This picture right here is three-dimensional, but in reality, it's a multi-dimensional space. So how do we actually embed that data in this vector database? So again, embedding data is a complex process in which we turn unstructured data like images, text, video, audio, and we turn that into numerical coordinates that a computer can read. And the way that this works is very complex. Machine learning models use complicated algorithms to create these vector embeddings based on the unstructured data provided. So you can think of the vector embeddings as a list of numbers that just represents the data in another way. And then moving on, the second piece of the process is vector indexing. Indexing is just a data structure that helps facilitate the search process. It often includes a distance metric. There are multiple ways to index, and this really is a research field in of its own right, so I won't dive in too deeply here. But all that you need to know is that there's multiple ways to index the data, and it enables faster searching. So once you've turned all of that data into vector embeddings, these embeddings are mapped to a vector database. So if we work through an example together, if you're the user and you ask a question about pets, for example, this is the user query or the user prompt. What's going to happen in that retrieval step is that relevant chunks to pets, so this might include dogs, cats, horses, any vectors that fall near that pet's vector will be pulled as context. So just thinking of RAG in action, very high level for this pets example, the answer that we get from the large language model at the end is really just a combination of those relevant chunks or context being augmented together with our user query about pets, and then combining that with the large language model, its foundational model, its system prompt, all of that together will be used to create your response. Now, if we move into N8N, this is an example of a RAG agent. So on the left-hand side, step one, this is embedding the data into a vector database. So we're just downloading a file from Google Drive, feeding that into Pinecone, which is a vector database. We're using OpenAI's embeddings model. We're using a default loader and a recursive character text splitter, which basically takes the data, turns it into chunks, and then those chunks are then embedded into the vector database, and we're using an OpenAI embeddings model to do that. And then step two is just basically chatting with that data using a RAG agent. So when a user asks a question about pets, it's going to pull the relevant chunks from that Pinecone vector database and respond to our query. Now, the last part that we're going to touch on, which is quite exciting, are all of the real-world use cases that we can use this for. RAG agents are quite valuable and in high demand, so it's important to understand the actual real-world use cases here. So I've just listed out 8 right here on the screen, but there are many more use cases out there. So the first one is an internal knowledge assistant. So think about a RAG agent, which is loaded with all of your company policies, which can answer employee questions. SOPs might be in there, Notion pages, etc. The reason why it works is because RAG keeps that information grounded and updated based on your actual documents. Number 2 are customer support bots. This is basically a way to auto-answer customer queries using FAQ documents, product manuals, help center information, etc. This would reduce ticket volumes and give fast, reliable answers. Number 3, contract or legal summarization. This would allow you to upload long contracts or legal documents and actually ask questions about them. So the RAG agent would retrieve specific clauses and answer your questions accurately. The fourth one, product recommendation engines. This would allow users to match with the best product for them using internal data. So the RAG agent could reason over real product descriptions, reviews, or inventory data and suggest the best product. So PDF, documents, transcript, analyzer/chat. Basically, you can upload information, whether that's a PDF, a transcript, a document, a book, and ask questions. The RAG agent will retrieve the most relevant chunks and answer your questions. Course or content browsers, if you're offering some type of educational offer, you can load a RAG agent with everything that you teach. So people that are learning from you or employees can ask questions about that data 24/7 and get a response. Development support agents. These could be AI agents that help developers query your docs, APIs, and code base. RAG could fetch individual code snippets or function descriptions. And the last one, sales intelligence analysis. If you have a sales function, a RAG agent can pull insights from CRM notes, from call transcripts or proposals. Sales reps typically don't have the time to do this, and RAG does it instantly. providing insights from data that otherwise wouldn't be possible. So there's many use cases for RAG AI agents. These are very powerful systems that allow you to communicate with unstructured data in many different ways. If you want to learn more about AI automation and building AI agents in N8N, like the RAG agents that we've seen in this video, then make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more videos. Appreciate you watching till the end. Thanks so much.